thank you for joining us today. I'm Sally Rideout, Government Affairs Specialist for the Southwest Indiana Chamber. We have Ian Gamroth, who's a candidate for state representative. We have Tara Barney, the President and CEO of the Southwest Indiana Chamber, and Patty Van Oven, the Executive Director of the Gibson County Chamber of Commerce. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Tara. Take it away.
Thanks, Sally, and thanks for being with us, Ian. We really appreciate your willingness to stand up as a candidate. It's a big commitment of time on behalf of the region, and so I'll start off by thanking you for doing so. I want to ask you a question that has been a priority of this region for a long time, and that has to do with moving the I-69 interstate bridge to the next step. We are very close to getting a record of decision, hopefully within the next few months, on the environmental impact study for the I-69 river crossing. It's stalled right now over the fate of the decision on a toll-free preservation of the two existing bridges that run between Evansville and Henderson. Tell us how you might be able to support the 69 bridge project and how you could help us as a community achieve our desired plan to keep both of the existing bridges intact as part of this future service to our region.
Well, keeping those two bridges intact, I think, would be a huge thing for the area, not only for the nostalgia part of it, but I mean, it's a huge optics thing for this region. Everybody in this region knows those bridges, and you cross that money-saving bridge, you know, every time you. And so, I mean, that is something that I think my wife and I talk about on a weekly basis, you know, when we go down that way. So I think that it's kind of one of those giants in the region of things that, if you did away with that, I mean, that would be a huge blow to the cultural impact here, not only for the transportation and infrastructure part of it. So to keep that, you know, as part of this area, you would pretty much have to work with anybody and everybody that could be a part of it, to include the legislature of Kentucky, you know, as well. And so to be able to work back and forth with that legislature, depending on, you know, if we still have a Republican majority and they have a Republican majority, I would still have to work with them across the aisle on both legislatures to make sure that the common goal is met. And I think that that's one of those things that will kind of bring everybody together. It's one of those plans and ideas that everybody can agree on, and I think would be a real easy issue to work through. But just being able to have that open dialogue, and also to work with all the agencies involved, local, state, and federal agencies that would have to be involved with that, not just the Indiana side of it.
Good perspective, and we're counting on your support there.
Absolutely.
Patty? You're muted.
Patty, you're on mute.
Sorry. Let me unmute myself. Love Zoom. Okay, sorry. I muted myself because of the traffic. Anyway, sorry, let me start over, Ian. During this pandemic, there's things that have been brought to light, surface of things. And so while we had hoped that the federal government would address concerns about business liability for those companies operating during the pandemic, it appears that that issue will fall to the individual states. And many states have already taken action in this area. What is your view of the issue, specifically about actions or activities and issues should be covered? And do you plan to play a role in authoring or sponsoring legislation on this issue?
So, I mean, I feel like, even though I'm a candidate, I've been living through this like everybody else has, right? And so the one thing that everybody, when we sit around and we talk to each other, whether it's me officially as a candidate or if it's just me talking to my mother-in-law, you know, who lives 2 doors down from me on the farm, you know, we've kind of talked about that there's no guidance from the top down. And so to be able to put in place and say, okay, I'm going to have to be the bad guy, or I'm going to have to be the one that makes the tough decision to put measures in place that help keep the economy from tanking, that help maybe possibly even grow if in areas that are possible in the local area during this. But somebody, you know, up in leadership position needs to do that. And I think that that would start with the state legislature, and to come down and to say, as a state, this is the plan that we agree on, and not saying that my plan, if I author a bill or another candidate who authors a bill, is the perfect one, but have a starting off point and then everything trickle down from that, instead of constantly passing that buck down the line from the state level to the county level to the city level, and to be able to put that all into one spot and then somebody just go, we're going to take the reins, we're going to make the decision, and we're going to do what's best to not only keep everybody safe, but also to keep the economy going, keep local infrastructure going, so that there's as least impact as possible all the way down to that local community level.
And we would be greatly appreciative of that, because, you know, like this last weekend, the chamber hosts the Heritage Days, which we had to cancel. And a lot of our fundraising events that this year we've had to cancel. So
yes,
it was great to get some direction.
Yes. And I believe that starts at the top. You know, you have to be able to get that direction. If you keep passing that down to the next level and the next level and the next level, then you're going to get 3, 4, 5 different directives that are not even directives. They're more of suggestions. And for somebody to just stand back and say, this is what we're going to do. Here's what it is. If you want to be more restrictive, that can be on you, but here's the minimum of what we want to see. And then if your local community wants to be more restrictive, then that's okay. But having that one person, that one point of contact somewhere in the state that all of these communities can go through, whether it's Gibson County or Pike, Knox, Vandenberg, Posey, wherever, they can go and go to that one person, that one site, and say, we have this issue that we need to take care of and we need some guidance on. And right now you can call the state, but you're going to get different answers depending on what day and who you talk to.
Oh, that's a fair description of what I've heard from some folks. I'm going to kind of stay on the good government conversation and ask you a question about kind of the situation Indiana's in coming out of the pandemic. Certainly it's put significant strains on the budgets of state government and many local governments. As you go into this budget making session, what will you be working to protect with the reduced resources available, and where should we be directing increased resources to help Indiana move forward?
I think the pandemic highlighted a lot of lax areas that have kind of either been neglected or fallen through the cracks, or just kind of passed on saying, we're going to take care of this next budget session. We'll take care of this, you know, in 5 years. And then, you know, this has kind of brought to light a lot of those blemishes and the plans that have been in place. First and foremost, the educational system, the public education system here was a huge highlighted issue. Not even just because of the pandemic just made it, put a magnifying glass on it, made it worse. You saw the lack of infrastructure for communications in all areas, not just this area down here. We saw teachers, again, with less resources, working in absolutely abysmal conditions at some point with, you know, the resources they got for teaching remotely. So putting that focus on the educational system, and the budget is going to be tight. And we know that going into it, but what we can't do is let more get pulled from that public education system. And one of the things that we can do is we can pull some of that money back from the for-profit charter schools, because if you look at the that whole scandal with whatever that final number ended up being, $80+ million defrauded from the state. I mean, if that money could have been back into traditional public education, of which 87% of the students in my district here are a part of, and about 90% statewide are in public education. So being able to funnel that money back in from for-profit charters and put that back into traditional public education will help save some of that budgetary money come, you know, this next session. And then also, I already kind of touched on it, but communication infrastructure is huge. I live in Gibson County on the south side of Princeton, right in between Princeton and Fort Branch. I could see the Toyota manufacturing plant out my window, and I have no access to broadband internet. When I had to remote teach, I was using my phone hotspot. And so to be able to put an emphasis on getting that broadband internet to all these rural areas for these students, these teachers, to have access to that quality education that we want them to have is going to be a huge priority. Because again, this highlighted that fact, and not just with students and teachers, but all these folks that worked remote during this, having to work from home over Zoom. I cannot Zoom on my laptop. This is my cell phone leaned against my laptop because my internet does not work that well here. So being able for people, small business owners, and those that run remote at this point and have been running remote at this point, having that rural broadband infrastructure in place would be a life-changing event for people. I mean, that's one of those things, like, people will remember the day they got high-speed internet in 2021 or whenever it finally gets there, because
Hopefully that's right.
it'll be a huge thing. So, and that's going to take, and then the other part of that, and I can go on this all day, but to save money in that budgetary stuff, there are grants out there that local communities can work for to help bolster these broadband internet installations around the state, that local communities, local counties, I know Gibson County's filed for it, I think 2 or 3 times, to try to get a broadband internet contract put in here, that they had to put a couple $100,000 into as a partnership, and then they would come in and do the rest, and it would have to be completed by the end of 2021 and all this. And that's a great thing. But again, it wouldn't cost the state anything if you were just helping facilitate that as a state legislature with the local government to come in and apply for these grants. So there's all kinds of places that we can save money and then put that saved money towards the places that we need it come budgetary session this January. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's a lot of places. And we can first start with the areas that we know we have money, like charter for-profit charter schools are one for education, grants for infrastructure for broadband internet, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, the money's there. You just have to put a little work in and try to work with it with the local communities, with the federal government, and bridge that gap as a local legislator.
Thanks. Patty?
Well, Ian, I'm going to keep on the education aspect because I know that's near and dear to your heart. So
Absolutely.
Southwest Indiana must increase our overall educational attainment if our citizens are going to compete successfully in the global economy. Increasing high school graduation rates and post-secondary credentials are regional goals. If you could rewrite the education and workforce programs and processes, what changes would you make and what would you keep to work towards this goal?
Oh, man. I just talked to another candidate about this the other day, and one of the things that I think would be a huge impact would be to do the career technical education side of it. This area has such job growth and potential. I mean, we saw it, in December of 19, pre-pandemic, we were down to 2.4% unemployment, one of the lowest in the state. That's huge, right? And so, wow. But the thing, we have the potential here in Southwest Indiana to take that number sub 2%. And one of the ways that we can do that is to promote those career technical careers, especially skilled labor. There's a ton of skilled labor jobs in this area that are constantly hiring and in need for. And so if we could rewrite some of that educational legislation to put an emphasis on more career technical jobs, that would be a huge bolster, not only to the community for job growth, but also to the students, because I feel like a lot of students they get trapped in that thought process of, I have to go to a traditional 4-year university. If I don't do that, I'm not going to be successful in my career. And so if you put that out there and say, that's not the only option anymore. You have this technical track that, I mean, I'm a public school teacher, traditional 4-year education, college degree, and a lot of those career technical jobs out there pay 2 or 3 times what I make as a public school teacher. And so, there's this stigma that we need to break out of. And I think one of the ways that we can do that is to put emphasis on that in education legislation, and to say, you want to see job growth, you want to see population growth in your area. By the way, Gibson County saw a 0.2% population decrease over the last 10 years. So we have this huge job growth, right? We have all the railroad jobs and Toyotas in this area, but Gibson County itself has saw a slight population decline, and we don't want to do that. We want to bring that skill into this area so that it can give back to this community, so that it can grow. And I mean, I tell everybody, education is the first and foremost the linchpin to everything. You can't have good jobs in an area if you don't have good education. You can't have good housing if you don't have good education. All that stuff comes back to education. So if we put that emphasis on that career of technical education, I think that would be a huge bolster.
Well, Ian, I almost hate to ask this question because I think I know the answer, but what will be your main issue that you will talk about, want to champion, want to own if you're serving in our state legislature?
Well, I mean, I think my background speaks.
This is your wrap-up opportunity here.
Yeah, I mean, education is near and dear to my heart, but even after that, healthcare in this area, it needs some improvement. 55% of the population in this area is over the age of 45, but we're seeing a decrease in elder care facilities, even though our population is aging. Access to cheaper prescription medication is going to be huge here. I mean, Gibson General does a great job, but that's the only hospital between here and Vincennes and Evansville. So to be able to put some more medical facilities in between here and there, or to make them more easily accessible would be a big thing. So healthcare is also a big priority of mine. Job growth is a big priority of mine because we saw such a steep decline with the pandemic that we want to get it back to where it was or better, which I think we can do. Rural infrastructure, we're in this fight right now with the whole zoning, no zoning in the Southwest with the windmills, and then there's the solar. And so to be able to sit down with local communities, local government, county commissioners, and so on and so forth, to work through what they need from the state to be successful. Because I mean, coal jobs, we've lost how many in this area in the last year? Almost 1,000. Yeah. That are permanently gone, not just temporary layoffs, are permanent, gone jobs, not coming back. And so no matter what your feeling on coal in this area is, like, without my input, without our current representatives' input, those are going away nothing anybody's going to do is going to stop that. It's like the horse and buggy. It's just going away. So if we can better prepare ourselves for 10, 15 years down the road, so that we can anticipate that changeover, whatever it may be, because only time's going to tell at this point, but there's going to be a change, and to be able to anticipate that and be ready for it so that we don't feel that hiccup in the system, so that our community doesn't slide down backslide down into a low or a high unemployment rate again. That's going to be big. So, I mean, I know I focus a lot on education, but there's a lot more that goes into it in Southwest Indiana. I mean, education is always going to be near and dear to my heart. And then the one thing that will always take precedence over everything is veteran care. I mean, I'm a retired Air Force veteran, and this area does a lot for vets. There's a lot of good agencies in Indiana, nonprofits, that are doing things to not only help with mental health of veterans, but also job placement. They're recruiting from out of state to bring qualified and talented workers into this area, especially Southwest Indiana. InVets out of Indianapolis is a nonprofit that does wonderful things. So being able to be a champion for veterans, as well as teachers, and as well as the coal miners and whoever else in this area, you just need somebody that's going to stand up and be like, hey, I know I talked about education yesterday, but let's talk about that coal job that you just lost today, because that's what's important right now. So I know I talk a lot about education, but I'm not a one-hit wonder. I can sit and talk about the rest of this, and it's all stuff that's important to me because it's where I live. I mean, I'm right here. I'm smack dab in the middle of this district. I'm surrounded by everybody and everything that's going on at all times. And I feel like I got a real good pulse on the community because I'm a teacher, and I hear from the kids and from the families. And I went to one of Patty's chamber meetings back months ago, back when I can't remember when that was.
Yeah.
And just being able to go to that and get a good sense of what's going on with the chamber and Gibson County was a big help. So.
Well, we sure appreciate hearing from you, and we appreciate your leadership very much. I
appreciate you having me on. I mean, like I said, I'll talk to anybody and everybody whenever I can. So just got to work around my school schedule. You know, I still got to teach kiddos.
Oh, we understand that. And that's probably one of the most important things you're doing for this community. So thanks for that. But
Yes.
in all seriousness, we appreciate this time with you, and we wish you a good next few weeks.
Yeah, we're coming down to the wire. I mean, Absentee ballots people are starting to get them in the area right now. So look out for those.
All right. Patty, anything else to add?
I do not. Thank you so much, Ian.
Thanks
Thank you
for
very
being
much.
here.
I appreciate it. Sally, thanks for everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good
Nice to meet you.
afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.